Yo, what's going on? I actually have to re-record the first part because the audio got corrupted. So I'm just going to do an overview of 1070 and 1071 with Luffy versus Lucci. It's a dope chapter. Honestly, it's one of my favorites out of this stint of chapters. Getting to see Luffy use, his different abilities, pretty much negative Lucci in this fight. Luffy didn't land a clean blow on Luffy at all, truly showing that Luffy is a Yonko. And I love the fact that it's 32 seconds for Luffy, Jinbei, Chopper, and Bonnie to ride on that tube train, and Luffy's back to normal. So seemingly the countdown for Gear 5th is just 32 seconds, way better than a 10-minute timeout for Gear 4th, as we saw with Doflamingo, Kaido, Cracker, and Katakuri. So that's definitely a step above. But let's start at the very beginning. I don't want to jump too far ahead. We get to see Vegapunk talk about how the Seraphim are the strongest beings or strongest humans in history. That's going to remain to be seen. Do I think that they have the potential to get there? If they can one day develop Haki, but we know Haki is your will and willpower realized or personified in the forms of observation, conquerors, and armament. So until the Seraphim can actually have a will of their own and do what they want to do, I'm not going to jump that far and say that they're, human level or above humans. And until I can see them use Haki, I'm going to pause on that. But do they have the potential, as Vegapunk said, to be the quote-unquote strongest humans in history? Yes. Because they do have Lunarian DNA. He also says that it's easier to replicate Zoan powers out of all the retypes. He says Logia powers are the hardest to actually do. And I actually like that because he has a limit. There's not like Vegapunk is the smartest man in the world, but there's even a limit for him. And seemingly, because how do you recreate an intangible fire fruit? An intangible fire ability, intangible light. That's why even though the pacifistas have Kizaru's laser, doesn't mean that they have Kizaru's intangibility. So I actually like that there's a limit to it. But they do have the green blood, which is synthetic. That's how they give them powers of the actual devil fruit users, because they use the lineage factor from the devil fruit users. In this case, it was Senior Pink that Frankie was remembering at this time, and he was worried about him. And then it actually showed that, as again, there's a limit to Vegapunk's genius. And basically, in this chapter, we get to see Luffy beat Lucci with a Dawn Rocket, completely takes him out and knocks him out. By this point, and I forgot to mention, they also take Atlas up on that tube too to get her fixed in there. And I already mentioned Luffy's time period, but even when they went up the tube, time had passed, and even Rob got back up as well. So, but by the end of that chapter, that is when we see that Kizaru is coming, and he mentions that he's bringing ships with him as well. And if the Straw Hats think is going to be a easy escape, think again, right? And also CP0 has full control of all of the Seraphim that are present on Egghead Island. And then we go over to chapter 1071. And this is when Kuma is flying over to the red port. He crashes into the wall. And we can see that it wasn't his intended destination because, again, it's an actual crash. It's a giant boom. He's bleeding when he hits the ground. We know that if it's his destination, is a paw print usually appears below them, and it lets them have a easier fall because there's actually the paw print that makes the impact, not the actual body, but his body made the impact. And so he looks up the red wall. Everybody is terrified because Kuma's there. They're going to go and get the Marines. And then we go right back to Egghead Island. CP0 is getting ready to go up top, or trying to figure out a way to get into the Labo phase where all of the Vegapunks are gathered at, along with the Stella body. And this is when Vegapunk himself asks the Straw Hats if all of them can go up on the ship. And they say, yeah, of course. But then we see that the laser field goes down. All right. And so obviously we know at this time Stussy, again, going forward a little bit, we know that Stussy is the one who Vegapunk calls on it in this chapter to help out. But we don't necessarily know if that's the reason why the field went down or not, right? Was it to let Stussy through, or could Stussy have taken care of Lucci and Kaku down there by herself without having to get them all involved, right? But yeah, so they call on this secret person for help. At the time, I thought maybe there was a secret Lunarian on the island, because we needed somebody who could take care of not just Kaku and Lucci, but also the 4 Seraphim, right? I was thinking somebody strong. I know folks threw out that it was Smoker was there. Maybe he's the guy who Vegapunk called on. But it was great to also see that, come to the fact that it was actually Stussy who he called on. But coming back to the actual chapter, 1071, when Bonnie gets up there, she actually goes to look for Vegapunk to get him to turn her dad back to normal, or at least tell her why he did it. And then but basically at this point, Luffy and them are up there too, and so they meet up with the rest of the Straw Hat crew that are up there, minus Brook and Zoro. We know Brook and Zoro are still on the Thousand Sunny, but when the dome goes down, that's when Kaku, Lucci, and Stussy fly up with Skywalk. Lucci tells them to take out the ship, and Kaku is the one who says he's going to do it, and so he sends a giant Tempest Kick Sky Slicer, which seems to be the very same one that he used in his hybrid form back in Zoro, when Zoro cut it with his 9 sword style Ashura. So he sends out this giant sky slicer. Zoro wakes up and with 1 sword stops the attack, and he's like, Zoro being cool. I was wondering who woke him up, and Kaku sweating, sweat skill, right? And he's in shock that it's Zoro on the ship, and so they get, it's a small skirmish. Lilith is ready to go and fight herself. And pretty much that's when somehow Vegapunk ended up out there with Bonnie. We don't even know why Vegapunk left the room, what he was going to go do, but Vegapunk has left the room. Luffy and them get up there, and Luffy's like, I don't want to leave yet. Like we just got here, but then they're like, dude, the Navy is on their way. CP0 is downstairs. We got to get out of here. And so then right after that, we get to see Kid's crew. They're arriving to a island, and it's the home of the giants. And so it's Killer who asks him, hey, are we going to go and explore on this island? And he's like, of course. And actually like that Kid is an actual explorer, that he's not just a meathead, but that he actually likes to find stuff out too. So that's pretty dope. But then right after that, Garp calls G14 and wants some more troops, wants some more ships, and they're like, no, we're all heading over to Egghead Island. You've come at the wrong time. He's like, whatever, just and then he calls for Kobe's friend Hell can't get the word, I don't know, Hell Meppo. And he tells him to stop crying, and basically they're going to go and save Kobe themselves. And so that sets up Garp versus Blackbeard Pirates. Obviously, is Blackbeard actually at Full of Lead Island, or is he still fighting Law on Winter Island? Is that fight going to get interrupted? Is Kobe even on that ship with like Blackbeard or them, or was he already sent to Full of Lead? It's just a bunch of stuff that could happen. But this seems to be setting up a huge event. I know a lot of people are saying that this is the parallel to Sabaody with Egghead Island and everything like that, because in 1074, as we're going to get to, because again, I had to re-record this, so I've already recorded part 2 and part 3, but this is me kind of skipping forward, ahead. Will Luffy punch Saint Saturn like he punched, I think it was Charlos on Sabaody? Who's going to fight who? Is it going to be Luffy and Zoro against Kizaru? Or is it going to be Zoro against Kizaru and Luffy against Saint Saturn and things like that? So it's just an exciting time to be a One Piece reader. Yeah, so that was the end of 1071. 1072, that's when we get into some more exciting developments. That's when we get the whole reveal. The beginning of the chapter, if you're not paying attention, it can throw you off because it opens up with pretty much a log from Dr. Vegapunk. Let me read it real quick in the Viz translation. It says, "Even if the world doesn't agree, I know that she is a living, breathing person, a true and undeniable human being. It was a success. I am certain of it, and this is one great step toward the creation of world peace. Dr. Vegapunk, director of MAD's Laboratory for Peace." And so right there we know I guess he envisioned MAD's to be a laboratory of peace. We see that by 1073, the cover spread is that he created gunpowder that only shot out flowers. And so, but not to jump too far ahead. And so it was supposed to be a peaceful laboratory, but again, that's contrast by Queen, Sanji's dad, Vinsmoke Judge, and we see Caesar Clown. Queen seems to be developing some type of plague because we see him having 2 vials that are smoking. Judge is developing his spear, and Caesar, I guess, is developing his first smile fruit of many. And so even though Vegapunk has peace in mind, they seemingly do not have peace in mind. They seem to be more about, as we know them to be inside of the story. We know Queen about Wano with the playground, Caesar testing on children, turning them into giants, giving them drugs, and we know Vinsmoke Judge created all of his 5 kids to be superhumans with exoskeletons. So we know that they weren't envisioning peace. They were envisioning something way more diabolical, if you will. And so basically the chapter opens up with like Bonnie faking and acting like she's crying on the floor. But what I do love about on page 3 of the Viz translation is that she uses this ability called Distorted Future. So we basically see that even when she first used her fruit power on Luffy and them, she turned Luffy into the failed version of himself at an old age, like Oda covered in the SBSs. So I love how Oda's tying that in. And then we know that she turned Chopper old and she turned Jinbei young, right? But she's doing this to herself. She's buffed herself up in a distorted future of herself. She also skipped leg day like most One Piece characters do, except for Whitebeard. And and she's finally able to actually hit Vegapunk with her age skewer, which is this basically knocks Vegapunk's age out of himself. It looks like stars and different constellations. One looks like a heart, and so it turns him really young, basically into a baby, a defensive baby. And so he says child abuse in one of the translations. And so, but she lets us know that this is not a permanent thing she can do to anybody. So I know there was rumors floating around for a very long time that she was keeping the Gorosei alive with her fruit power. That's why Akainu and them chased her down and were going to give Blackbeard and them a ship for capturing her. But, and again, not to bunny trail too much, but since we are talking about Elbaf and Ragnarok and all that stuff. In the Norse mythology, they have these apples called the apples of Idun that, when consumed, the Norse gods, would just live longer lives. It wouldn't revert them back to a younger age, because we know in Norse mythology, the older you get, the stronger you are. And so that right there is that maybe that's what that garden is for in Pangea Castle. I know a lot of us in the community have theorized that it's a devil fruit tree, but what if it's the tree of a dune or something like that? But anyway, again, not to monitor too much, she basically knocks all of the age out of Vegapunk and is demanding that he tell her what he did to her dad, Bartholomew Kuma. He's like, I can't tell you. I swore it, you know. He doesn't say on his life, but that's basically what you can allude to. And he's saying that if she sees it, she's not going to like what she sees. And so, obviously, the title of the chapter is called The Weight of Memory. Other translations, I believe it's the same thing too. But we know that in East Blue, or Vegapunk mentions a scientist in the West Blue who was smart and he had a theory about the weight of the soul and how, like, the human body, when it dies, it loses 21 pounds or 21 grams. And so that scientist could have been Dr. Hogback, who we saw in Thriller Bark, the doctor who inspired Chopper. And so basically he wants he wants Kuma to use his ability in different ways in the name of science. Kuma's like, I'm not showing you my memories. You know, those are things that are like embarrassing. And one translation it says it's embarrassing. Another one says that they're precious. But basically, you know, his eyes only. And so, but one thing is that I always thought Kuma's ears were just the hat. I didn't realize that those are actually his ears. He literally has bare ears. And so maybe that's why, because of his appearance, he's called Kuma. But even though because at this point, the Marines are trying to shoot him off the Red Wall, and they eventually do. But he does get up and use his paw ability, and he's seemingly shooting them back at them. And you can see it being depicted as booms, and you hear screams as well from those soldiers who were shooting at him. By that point, we go back to the labo phase, and the Seraphim are there, and they're going to be ordered to attack like lab itself. And so, but we see that Zoro and Brook are outside. Zoro tells Brook to go ahead and protect the ship, and then he and Kaku get into it. Kaku is an awakened user. We know that Kaku loved giraffes. Kaido was saying that your awakening happens when your mind and body catch up to one another. I know a lot of people are like, okay, how are all of these CP0 agents awakened, but Kaido isn't, or the Beast Pirates weren't? You know, I do think that was a missed opportunity in Wano. I would have loved to have seen an awakened king and queen, but I know those fights would have been longer, and I know Oda was been trying to speed some of the things up. Even though he did recently say that it's not going to end as fast as what he's implying. So I know he said 3 years. Realistically, we're looking at maybe 5 or 7 years of more One Piece. But Kaku uses his nose pistol again, and a move called Kilimanjaro or Gyro. And Zoro's like, look, I've had enough of fighting. You guys. He basically fought these types all through Wano, and he's not trying to do it again, so he easily knocks him down to the ground, meaning Kaku. And right after that, let me just make sure I didn't miss any. Oh yeah, you have dialogue between Frankie and Sanji and Nami about saving Zoro, and Sanji's joking around, talking about something to think Zoro would die right before one piece is found, and so he also refers to himself as a seraphim, as a play on words, and so that right there is a little bit of that, it's storytelling that Oda tries to always weave in, to like get, either a laugh or a chuckle out of us and the audience. And I actually do love these like moments more because it feels like classic One Piece. And I know a lot of people complain about wanting classic One Piece back in the manga, but I just enjoy, these simple moments being between the like crew a lot, because we honestly don't get it enough in the New World arcs. And so basically we just get to see the Seraphim attacking the Labo phase, but by the end of the chapter, Kaku slumps over out of nowhere, and then Lucci looks over, and then we are revealed that the clone they were talking about in the beginning of the chapter is Stussy. Stussy, it says, clone of Miss Buckingham Stussy, Rock's pirate, Matt's clone experiment, successful subject number 1, Stussy. So Stussy is not a natural born human. She's seemingly a lot older than what she looks, maybe through the power of science, because we know that she's basically, we find out in the next chapter, which I'm about to go over, that she's a clone of Miss Bakken or Miss Buckin. And so Miss Buckin seems to be going through a bad future, because this is what I was talking about with Bonnie using her fruit power on Luffy. We know she turned Luffy into the bad ending version of himself. Miss Bakken seems to be going through a bad and current version of her actual real life. That's why she's shrunk down so much. We see Oda do that with certain characters in age. I'm thinking of one of the former empresses of Amazon Lily. She's really shrunk down and old, and we see that with some of the other characters as well inside the series. But you see Shaki, 68 years old, still looks perfectly fine. Even when Oda depicts Nami at the age of 60, she still looks like her regular self. And in the old SBS, he talked about maybe the secret of Dr. Kureha still maintaining her physical form aside from her face might be because she's happy. And so we're saying that if you have a happy ending, you maintain your like form inside of the series, versus people who have crappy endings, not so much. Yeah, not so much. So that'll do it for this one, starting up on 1073 right now. All right, so back again now, recording in my closet, so that's where there's less airy sound noise in the background. But 1073 is probably my favorite chapter in this stint of like runs from 1071, 1072, 1073. This is the chapter, says Miss Buckingham Stussy. Obviously on the cover page is Dr. Vegapunk, who came up with his he won the Nobel Peace Prize because it was gunpowder that produced flowers instead of actual shells, to which countries couldn't go to like war, but it actually sponsored peace, because he won the Nobel Peace Prize. And so I like this chapter a lot, because one, we finally deal with Rob Lucci in this one, and then we also are furthering the plot while also adding in more mystery at the same time. This is where Oda, to me, is at his best, when he's able to move the plot forward, and not like by like leaps and bounds, but it doesn't feel like the story is stagnant. Times when the story felt stagnant in One Piece, like the Seducing Woods in Whole Cake Island, Dressrosa after the it was the Colosseum battle. Those like 10 chapters just felt like we didn't do anything for 10 chapters. I think that's like 751 through 761. And then even in Wano, at certain points, chapters just felt like, okay, we're doing the same thing, but just in a different font now. But again, where I feel Oda's in his bag is where he's able to do a few things. I feel like the plot is moving forward while also adding in lore and then dropping a bombshell on us by the end. So basically, this chapter starts out with Stussy having already taken care of Kaku. Now she's going after Lucci, and she uses a paper art after image. So she's moving so quick that Lucci is attacking her after image, but she's also so quick that like she can pull out the lipstick, stick it on Lucci's neck, and then bite down on them. Now, at first, I thought that she applied the lipstick, so I thought that she didn't have a devil fruit. But no, she just pulls it out, sticks it on Lucci. He can't move because of Sea Prism Stone, and then she bites him. And after that, she also says that I'm not stupid enough to fight fair against men as powerful as you two. So that does affirm that Kaku and Lucci are strong. It's just that they went against one, the sun god Nika, Luffy, and King of Hell, Zoro, without him actually even going into the King of Hell state. Which to me, I know folks are like, King of Hell is not a mode; it's more of a fighting style. But it's like, guys, let's not be some semantical about this. When Sanji does Diablo Jambe or Ifrit Jambe, we call it a mode, right? When Luffy was going gear second and gear third, we called it a mode. King of Hell is a mode. That's when he turns on his advanced color of the Supreme King or just COC, and that's when he that's when he goes in. Now we don't know how long it's going to last this time, because he does seem to have a better hold on Enma. Enma against Kaku didn't suck out any of his chakra. Why did I say chakra? Haki. And even when he got into that mini clash against S-Hawk, it didn't suck out any of his haki. So I'm considering King of Hell a mode. You might feel differently about that, but we'll see what Oda decides to do with it as we go on further. So after Kaku is knocked out, that's when we basically have Brook and Zoro asking her, is this like infighting between you guys? And then she gets back on the transponder cell, revealing that she's the one who Vegapunk called and asked for help from. And so then we get panels of Usopp, Robin, Jinbei, and Nami and Shaka, to talk about how they have an actual spy, which again is Stussy. She's a spy in this. And then right after that, this is when Zoro and Brook have to go and help out with Lilith and Edison as they are trying to give the command for the Seraphim to stop attacking trying to get the word out of my mouth, the Labo phase. And so basically as Lilith is coming out, S-Hawk tries to hit her with, I guess, a range attack, but Zoro jumps in with armament haki on his sword. So he is using Rio, or stage 2 armament haki. I really wish Oda would clarify, what it is. And then he and S-Hawk get in the clash. S-Hawk is sweating, because I know this is a whole stat that folks bring up. And then Zoro says, he says that S-Hawk is a little more human than what he is. So obviously he's referring to Mihawk, but I guess Zoro's talking about in the way that S-Hawk shows emotions while Mihawk doesn't. Now we know Mihawk laughs, but Mihawk has never shown an intense emotion or things like that. He's never seemingly bothered by anything. He's never pressed at all. As much as the community tries to meme that Vista was going to beat him, or in the flavor text, people were saying that Vista's his flower style was shown to be equal or superior to Mihawk Cap. Oda has said time and time again, Mihawk is the world's strongest swordsman. Anyone who uses a sword is considered inferior to him in that fighting style. So Mihawk is the top of the top of the top of the sword fighting world. And so S-Hawk and Zoro clash. Zoro seems to back up as there is a mini explosion between the two of the kinetic energy that it produces. And people try to power scale that. Oh, S-Hawk pushed him back. It's like, man, y'all are reading so much into this stuff that is quite comical, because then when you look over at the next 2 pages after Sanji saves Edison from a laser beam from S-Shark, Zoro is literally standing right there on page 9 of the Viz. Zoro is literally standing right there with S-Hawk after their clash. So he didn't go 20 feet back and hit a wall or anything like that. Now, maybe the anime might add that into it for pizzazz, and then we can power scale from there with that in canon, because we know Oda does say that he allows the anime to elaborate on scenes that he doesn't particularly will want to draw out. So maybe the anime will shed further light on this when we get to that point in the manga. But basically from that point, we go to Luffy and Chopper trying to find Dr. Vegapunk. But right here and on the page it says, but an incident had occurred. Dr. Vegapunk's Stella was nowhere to be found. So, we know from 1072, Bonnie turned him into a child and went into Kuma's it was a bubble in there, as we discussed in the last part. But right after this, we go back to Sphinx Island in the New World, where we see kids and older women gathered around Marco to let him know that Weevil and Bucking did come, but also the Marines showed up because they knew Marco wasn't there. So that's why they went ahead and went to Sphinx Island to try to extort them out of money, because they don't fall underneath the security of the world government, because they do not pay the heavenly tribute. So a lot of semantics in there, but yes. And the lead Marine does look like, hold up, I gotta reset the stupid connection. I love Comcast, but sometimes I hate it. Give me a moment. It's not displaying my page. There we go. The Marine, I believe his name is called Rattel. And a lot of people thought that he looked like the same Marine from all the way back in Arlong Park, who also looked like a rat himself. And so basically he's trying to extort them for like money and things like that. But they tell him that, hey, we don't have anything here, and so basically as he's about to shoot the grandma, that's when Weevil comes in and knocks all three of them into the wall. Then they tell us that Weevil was captured by Green Bull. I believe this is Green Bull going to Wano, not coming from. I believe this is Weevil going, not Green Bull. I believe this is Green Bull going to Wano, not coming from Wano. Or maybe it is him coming from it, because a warship was there. And if you remember when Green Bull came to Wano, he did tell them to send warships. So maybe could be either way. We have to see what Oda clarifies in the story. But yeah, basically Weevil does that. But as I said, he does get captured by like the very end, and then we get the actual name for Miss Bucking. It says former Rocks pirate, self-styled scientist, Matt's freeloader, Miss Bucking, Buckingham Stussy. So that's how we do know that our Stussy on Egghead is an actual clone of Miss Buckingham. And then she basically says that Whitebeard is the dad, and the one who can prove it is Dr. Vegapunk, pretty much solidifying that Weevil is a failed clone of Whitebeard. Don't know how they got Whitebeard's DNA. Maybe from a battle. Maybe he gave them some. We don't know. Or maybe she stole it from him. But that's pretty much what we need further context from Oda when he gets to that point. And then basically the last part of this chapter is the reveal of one of the Gorosei's names. And so basically we see it's the marine ships, the battleships, the galleons, the Buster Call ships. And I know Sandman on Twitter talked about how the way Kizaru is talking is that he sounds nervous because he's way more stern on his troops than what he usually is, obviously. So he has a Gorosei on his ship, and he's the one who's serving him tea and biscuits, right? And then Saint J. Garcia Saturn says, just because Kizaru asked him, has he met Vegapunk before? And he's like, just once a long time ago, but I must say that I find this turn of events to be most most regrettable. And so basically that's the end of this chapter. As I said, I actually found this one as my most exciting, not just because of the reveal, but also because it moved the plot forward. It showed us who Stussy really was. We got to see Marco and things like that. So that'll be it. Sorry it's taking me so long to upload again, but it's just been an ordeal. My microphone cable stopped working. I had to factory reset my whole laptop to get it back in working form. So it's just been one thing after another. But now I'm seemingly finally back on track. I'm going to have a review out because chapter 1074 just came out yesterday. I read OP scans. Today I'm going to read TCB. And then Sunday I'm going to read the Viz. And I'm going to look at all of the translations to make sure I get the best one. And then I'll upload that video as well Sunday. Within hours of the chapter coming out. Obviously, I'll have to come back from church first. But yeah, that'll be it for me. Love you guys. Thanks for the views. Like, comment, dislike, whatever type of interaction you do. It helps out with the algorithm, and it gets our channel out there to more potential viewers, subscribers, sponsors, and things like that. So see you guys soon. Madara out.